Welcome back to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. Both Mom and I are really excited that you can join us for another week. And we're excited today. We have Jocelyn Hastie on with us. She's a resilient storyteller, speaker, and leader whose life has been shaped by bold choices, deep healing, and unwavering determination. From building a successful career in the energy industry to creating her dream life with horses, Jocelyn has navigated profound challenges, including surviving stage 4 cancer and rebuilding after sudden loss. Today, she shares her voice through writing and speaking, inspiring others to reclaim their self-worth, trust their path, and find power in their own stories. So, welcome, Jocelyn. We're excited to have you on the podcast today.
You
And I
bet.
am excited to be here. Yeah.
And so, can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you do? We did read a little bio, but
hmm Yes. What I do is work with women who perhaps have paid what I refer to as a power penalty. So they may have stepped into positions of power, but they've been slapped around a little for doing it. And because of that, occasionally they've allowed their voices to be muted. Perhaps they've sat in a boardroom, they've sat in a meeting, and it's generally a guy, has interrupted them 3 or 4 times, and they've finally given up. And they leave the meeting and they're not sure whether they're madder at themselves or at him. So, what I do is by helping those women spend time with the horses where they have the experience of physically leading a being that is undeniably bigger and stronger than they are, they find their inner leader. And they find their inner leader without bullying, without bribery, because those things don't work particularly well with horses. And it changes the way they show up in that next meeting. They learn to find their ground. So I refer to that as cowgirl confidence, which is a balance of tenderness, toughness, truth, and tact, because we need all four to
yes,
really
Beautiful.
find our feet.
That's
I love
beautiful.
that. Yeah,
I
I
know
love.
that I was at,
Sorry,
I'm sorry. I
go
know
ahead.
when I was in the industry way back when sort of the same thing happened. I was sort of, nobody was listening and I felt like I was losing my power. So I went skydiving and just to sort of get my nerve back.
Right.
I need to get that nerve back to get competitive again. So I understand what you're doing. It's great. Yeah, it's
And
beautiful.
sometimes we need that physical experience to
Yeah,
ground that feeling in our body.
they do.
Because we
They
can
do.
talk theory till the cows come home, but until we get that center and that authenticity in our bodies, in our lived experience, it's really hard sometimes to call on that when we need it.
It
Mhm.
is. Yeah, you're right.
Well, I think when you have that soul connection with the horses like that, this is like an animal that you can actually physically and, touch and be with and, potentially hear the heartbeat and connect in that kind of way. So can you explain a little bit about what people do to start getting their power back in that way?
Well, one of the very first exercises that we do, I call mindful grooming. And we spend anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes simply grooming the horse and being with them and creating a connection with them. Because I can immediately tell by watching how the horse is responding to the woman, whether they're in their head or in their bodies.
Mhm.
And once they can get super present and really connect with, usually I will have them put their feet like shoulder width apart, soften their knees just a little, put their hands on the horse and breathe into it. And I usually have them stand just behind the horse's shoulder so that the horse's heart chakra is lined up with the human's heart chakra. And
Nice.
when they can calm their minds and just get very present in the moment, you'll see the horse immediately stop shifting its weight and calm down. Because the thing with horses is, unfortunately, they are prey animals. and they stay alive by reading energy.
Hmm, interesting.
So they are reading the people's energy. And when we can get centered and grounded and focused, the horses will respond beautifully to us. But when we are up in our head and we're busy telling our stories, they really aren't that interested in connecting with us.
And you must see the shift in the people when they're going through this, then when from being into their head into being able to just like totally be vulnerable and give in to just this energy and this presence of being with the animal.
Right. And what's really interesting is that even if you go through my photo album, which I always have with me when I go to trade shows and things, you can see the difference in their faces from the beginning of the retreat to the end of the retreat. So in addition to the mindful grooming, one of the other exercises that we do is very powerful, is just leading through a very simple obstacle course. Because one of the things we do is we have like traffic cones set out, and we have the women do a figure eight around the traffic cones. Now, doing a figure eight for two is different than doing a figure eight alone.
Mm-hmm.
When you are on the inside, you have to make sure that you've moved your partner far enough out that you have room to circle the cone. And then when you go the other direction and the horse is next to the cone, you need to make sure that you are far enough over so that the horse isn't running over the cone either. And sometimes, and when it's most powerful, is when the horses aren't particularly cooperative. Because if the horse stops, what do you think is going to happen if the person just tries to pull them? Who's going
Yeah.
to win that tug of
Yeah.
war?
That's going to be the horse.
Yeah, there's no doubt. But then what we talk about is really there aren't that many places the horse can go. The horse can stand still. It can go forward. It can go backward. It can go left. It can go right. It could rear up or it could drop to the ground. That's about it.
Mhm.
So generally, what we end up doing is having the person make a small circle so they're pulling the horse to the side rather than forward. And almost always what they can do is make that little circle and then go forward again. And to me, that's such a metaphor for life. Sometimes we get so set on our path and our destination that if we have a tiny detour, we freak out about it.
Yeah, yeah, that's
When
true.
really all we need to do is do that little circle and get back on track, and we're fine. So I find that so many of the things we do with the horse can become amazing metaphors for what happens in our life and with other people, that they are terrific teachers of herd dynamics. That's the way they stay alive. And if we can watch them and pick up on what they're teaching us, some really wonderful things and really heart healing things happen for the people.
Can
Right.
you talk a little bit about some of the things that you've witnessed happen to people through this healing?
Absolutely. Some of the ways that, and this is going to sound crazy, so bear with me. We might get a little giggle or two here. Horses hold space beautifully, but they don't necessarily hold space the way we do. One of the ways that they hold space is by what we refer to in equine gestalt coaching as leeching. And what that is while we are releasing our own emotions, the horses will do huge yawns where they're almost cracking their jaws. Their head is up, their mouths wide open, they're making faces. And what they are doing is yawns are, of course, a release, an emotional release. And the other thing they do, and this is the funny part, is huge, smelly cow pie dumps.
Oh,
Not nice little road apples like horses usually do, but big, smelly physical releases. So, what that often does is, as gross as it sounds, is demonstrate the physical release that the person is, or demonstrate physically the emotional release that the people are having. And
Mm-hmm.
That
just
makes
being
sense.
around them because they are, I really believe that what dogs give us is a connection to unconditional love and loyalty. Horses, I believe, put us in touch with our personal power. My horses do not love me unconditionally. They have some pretty high expectations for the way I show up as their leader. In particular, they want to feel safe when they're around me, that they know when I am there, I am taking care of things for them and they're going to be okay. So if they do get frightened, and the thing to know about horses is they can honestly believe that that plastic bag that's flying in the wind across their pasture is going to kill them. That they could die from that plastic bag. So what they will do is run a ways until they're far enough that they can see it, and then they will lift their heads so they can clearly see, and they will determine whether they are still in danger. If
Wow.
they think they're still in danger, they run. If they realize that plastic bag is not such a threat after all, they want nothing more than to get back to grazing.
Interesting.
And that's another thing that we can really learn from them is that it's okay. What we do, or I should say, what I do, and I've observed other people do, is if we trip on a crack on the sidewalk, we immediately look around to see if anybody saw it. I have never once seen a horse be concerned about whether anybody saw them trip.
That makes
So
sense.
that's another lesson. And I've never once seen any horse that worries about whether this saddle makes their butt look big. They just, they just don't. So to me, they are wonderful teachers and examples for us of living in the moment, getting back to grazing. It doesn't mean you deny what's happened to you. You just say, I know I'm safe now.
Yeah. It's empowering for yourself then, really.
Absolutely.
Very.
Absolutely. And when you get to the point where you can live in the moment, it truly is empowering.
Yeah, I think so often we don't live in the moment, and like you had kind of said earlier, is when we're doing something and this little obstacle comes in our way, it's like it sometimes it just totally derails us to a point of almost that we can't even move forward, when
Right.
really most times if we just took couple of breaths and we're like, okay, that just happened, now on we move, how are we going to move forward, generally works out to however it's supposed to in the best way.
Right.
That's right. It's just a little hiccup. It's not permanent.
Yeah.
And I know we touched on my cancer journey. I know for me, it's part of my past. And I don't deny that it was a terrible experience that happened to me, but it is not my identity.
That's right. It's not.
It truly isn't. I mean, it is part of my past for sure, but it is part of my past.
Hmm.
And I do know that the person I was pre-cancer is not the person that I am today. In particular, probably the biggest thing is I now am not, I believe I was toxically independent, where I built walls and I wouldn't let people help me. And at this point in time in my life, I know I would have lost everything if people hadn't helped me. I was too sick to go out and feed my horses. I couldn't feed my dogs. I couldn't walk up 14 steps without resting. I lost a third of my body weight. And I really learned that it was a gift to the people who loved me if I would graciously accept their offers of help.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm. It's true.
that's a hard one for people to learn, I think.
Yeah.
It really, really is, especially when I mean, I grew up being told that people despise weakness and vulnerability. And I truly believed, or I truly feared, that if I told people how sick I was and asked for help, that they would run. And quite honestly, they did, but they ran to me, not away from
Yeah.
me.
Nice.
And I will be forever grateful for the support they gave me and that the lessons that I learned
Mhm.
about accepting help graciously and being there for other people too.
Great.
Boy, we have really gone here, there, and everywhere in this conversation.
This is how it tends to happen with us, but but I think it goes where like both Mom and I really feel like with this podcast, things go where they need to go for people to hear what they need to hear, right? And I really love how you said, that this is part of your story, but this is not who you are, right? Because so
Right,
often I think if we get sick or something happens to us, we don't move past it. I mean, we have to do the natural stuff with it, right? We have
right.
to go through that grief and that anger and all the things that come with being sick and having something, but not allowing it to define us either.
Right, right. And I have hesitated in the past about working with cancer patients or people that have been through trauma, because in some of the support groups I was in, people seemed to fall into two different categories. There were the ones that were completely identified with being cancer patients and cancer survivors. It was the first thing they led with every time. So when I met them in the group, they would lead with what kind of cancer they had had. And then there were the ones that were trying to heal. They were looking for the ways to heal. And for me, I did a complete shift with the toxic independence that I had when I first got sick. I was going to fight cancer, right? I was going to kick cancer to the curb. And then after a while, I realized I did not have the strength to fight. And I quit trying to fight the cancer and made my emphasis on healing my body. And because of that, for quite some time, I've really hesitated to wade into the water. But I am in the process of creating a new program called Reclaiming the Reins, which is for people that have had either a traumatic illness, maybe, or a traumatic loss. Perhaps they've lost their spouse or a child and are looking for a way to recognize that they will never go back to the life they had before.
No, no, I don't. No, you don't.
But that doesn't mean they can't have a wonderful life after.
Mhm.
And recognize what happened to them is part of their past, but doesn't need to define them.
Mhm. And
And I
this is
think too, once you've had cancer or something like that, because I think the C word, when you first hear it, that in itself is a trauma. It's
Right.
like, oh my
It
God, you hear
is.
people talk about it, but when you actually hear the C word and it's to you,
Right.
you know, it's a whole new momentum to how you feel and how you take things in. But I think
Hmm.
too, once you start, because I also had cancer, and I
Hmm.
found that what I did was just try to be the best I could do during the cancer
Right.
and not give into it,
Mhm.
and not give into everything that it's supposed to be.
Right.
Fear ridden, all the rest of it, right? So that you kept your strength up, and you don't just do it for yourself, but you also do it for the people that love you, because you're
Mhm.
watching them go through the torment and whatever else while you're going through it as well, right?
Right.
Different levels of work with that. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's good that you're doing this work because lots of people can't come away from it once they've had it.
right.
Yeah,
Right. And I don't deny it, but I
right,
also don't live in it every day. And
right,
it is, maybe it's a piece of my identity, but it's a small piece.
right.
And it is
Yes.
not the totality of who I am or what I do or what impact I have in the world.
And true. And I think too, like each year when you go to your, oh, it's my first year since I had it. Now I'm 6 years since I had it. And when the anniversary comes up, you think, wow, how I've changed since that time. Right.
Right.
Like
Hmm.
you go into like I'm going into my 8 years and it's like, wow, like so much has happened since I was first diagnosed. And so but you also have a better understanding with other people when you talk to them too, because you've been through it.
Hmm.
And that part's nice too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've accepted that there are times in my life when I'm vulnerable. I'm not the Iron Woman. My theme song does not have to be sisters are doing it for themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And so with this reclaiming the reins is what you've called this
Hmm.
program to deal
Right.
with the trauma. So you're helping people take back the reins in their life to find the
Right.
empowerment, and you're using the horses. Is there like
Right.
as part of
Yeah.
that?
So, and what I'm talking about is the acronym RAINS, the five letters in RAINS. The R is for recognize, where you acknowledge what happened to you and
Right.
what changed as a result of what happened to you, because you can't move forward from what you haven't faced. The E is engage, that you reconnect with yourself, with your life, and with the possibilities. And think about that. You're getting back to grazing, right? The I is integrate. And this is a critical step where the past becomes part of your wisdom, but not your
Mhm.
identity go forward. And this is where people can get stuck, as we've been talking about. The N is to choose direction again, even if it's uncertain or different than before. So you think about where you're headed. And then the S is self leadership. And self leadership truly is the emotional anchor because no one else can take the reins of your life for you. That
Right,
is an inside job.
right.
And it is the work of a lifetime.
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. We're always changing and growing, and I love this. Like this makes so much sense, and I'm sure mom makes sense to you too, right? Like having been through that to think about, just recognizing who we are and who we are later in life. Like there's all things all the times that are changing us, and if we can use that to empower ourselves instead of,
Right.
you know, oh, this happened to me. Oh, this is like, this sounds to me like, how can I move forward? How can I empower myself? How can
It
I
truly is
see,
future based. Yeah.
yeah, who I want
Like,
to
don't
be?
give up.
Hmm. Yeah, and I found while I was preparing for treatment, because I was diagnosed in June, but I didn't start treatment until late September. And fortunately, my radiation oncologist was a wonderful guy. And he said to me, if I authorize the summer off, because we're going to be doing um, surgical biopsies and we're going to build a radiation mask that you're going to have to wear when you go to radiation. And we're going to do PET scans and we're going to do CT scans and. And he said, what will you do with your time when you aren't doing those things? And if I give you the summer off? And I said, are you kidding? I'm riding my horses and my motorcycle every day. I am going to build decks. And indeed, I had a surgical biopsy on a Tuesday once, and I rode in a horse show in Claresholm on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then
Good for
I had
you.
another surgical biopsy later on a Tuesday again. And I caught a ride with a friend of mine and took my horse out to Cloverdale, BC, and rode in a horse show there. And I found I had pieces of the day every day where I forgot I was sick. because I was just determined that I was not going to, I might die from the cancer, but I wasn't going to let it take my life until it did.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
I lived my life in those months because I was really basically symptomless. Although I had a stage 4 cancer, I felt fine. And the only symptoms I had were hot flashes, and I was 53 years old. So you know what I attributed those to, and restless sleep. Those were truly the only symptoms that I had, other than a lump on my neck, which turned out to be a tumor that had metastasized to my lymph nodes. But I was just determined that I was going to, if I only had a few months left, I was going to do the very best I could and have a wonderful time in those few months. And a lot of that has carried forward into my life now, where I look for the things to celebrate and I look for the joy. And some of it is, you know, the little things when I go out to the pasture or out to the paddocks to feed the horses and I call, yoo-hoo! And they come running because they know I'm likely to have some apple pieces and carrot pieces for them. But that is truly joyful for me. And when I'm
Mhm.
working a horse in the round pen and it's decided it doesn't have to listen to me right then, and it's bucking and kicking and snorting and farting and tossing its head and running around, all I do is think, oh my, you are so beautiful when you do that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that
I'd
is
love to
beautiful.
ask the two of you, because you've both been through cancer, and I think this is maybe something people would want to know. So getting that diagnosis and kind of coming through on the other end, do you think that the cancer was put into your life to teach you something and to move you in a different direction of your life?
Well, I do believe that. My particular cancer was base of tongue. And I do believe that it had to do with me not speaking my truth.
Mm.
And the other thing that's interesting is when I was a child, and we can dig into some of this early life stuff. When I was a child, my father told everyone that I would be a boy. And indeed, my nickname until I was 10 was Charlie.
Oh, wow.
And I remember even as a young girl, feeling angry when I couldn't have the same things the boys had because I was born with ovaries instead of testicles. And I never wanted to be better than the boys, but I didn't want to accept less. And I
I
still
agree.
feel that way today. And
I
what's
agree.
very interesting about the cancer that I
Mhm.
had is 80% of the patients with that particular cancer are men.
Hmm, that is
Wow.
So
interesting.
that's one of my jokes is I was finally as good as any man, even in the cancer diagnosis.
Yeah.
So I think that the lesson I talked about in learning to let people in, that is a lesson that I truly believe has changed my life for the better. Now, that was an awfully rough way to learn it. But I do think that that was part of the lesson, and really learning to stand in my power and my truth and find my voice is part of the lesson that I've taken from that experience.
Hmm. How about you, Mom? Like, what did it give you some lesson that you learned through that?
Actually, definitely good lessons. Because with me, my mother was always one that cared about her boys more so. And us girls sort of got left in the background. So I all grew up thinking I'm as good as they are. I don't care. And I can do anything that they can. Yes, I can watch me, you know.
Mhm.
So I was always trying to be that other side of myself because I didn't want to ever show that I was weak. Right.
Right.
Because to me, like women were looked at being weak, unless we were in the kitchen, sort of thing. And I was always a very determined person to succeed. I wanted to just move ahead because of any kind of trauma that I had experienced. I didn't want to get stuck there because I'd seen too many people get stuck in traumas and leave their life behind.
Yeah,
And I
I just
wasn't
can't
willing.
believe how aligned we are
I know, eh?
in our beliefs and philosophies.
Yeah,
That's really cool. And
yeah,
I think the other thing I learned, and I'd be interested in getting your take, is there were so few women in positions of authority when I was in my 20s and 30s because I was in finance. I'm a CPA by training. I was in finance in the energy industry, and there were many, many clerical, but there were very few women that were in positions of authority. And because of that, I really do believe I modeled that leadership style of the early 80s, which was bullying and bribery, basically.
yeah,
And I saw other women as competitors because I
yeah.
didn't think there was room at the table for more than one woman. And if there was only going to be one there, darn it, it was going to be me. And I think that another big piece of my lesson was truly to understand how important female friendships and relationships are. And when I got out of that competition and moved into collaboration, how much better my life was. And now I live for collaborations. Even
Yes.
in running my retreat center, I always have a co-facilitator with me. Generally, I have a licensed therapist so that if the horses can dig up some pretty deep stuff, and I never want to leave
Yeah.
somebody worse off than they were when they arrived. And I am a coach, not a licensed therapist, and I want to make sure that they have the support that they need. So my collaborators that are therapists are just absolutely amazing and truly add to the experience that the clients have. And I think that I've totally gotten over needing to be the one that's in control all the time. And if
Yeah.
someone asks me a question that I absolutely know there's someone else in the circle that can answer it at least as well as I can and possibly better, I don't hesitate to immediately shine a light on them.
Yeah. 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 I was into intangible marketing, but it was also a man's industry that I walked
Mhm.
into. So I always felt like I was in competition, and I really was, because the men had the stronghold of what they felt was, I've been doing this for 25 years, and you're a woman walking into it. What do you know? And so you're always in competition. Um, but it was good because it taught me how to have strength.
Yes.
Okay, not to give up when they can be such what they are sometimes,
Yes.
and and to work around the way that they are and make it work into my favor.
Mhm.
So as far as collaborating and stuff, it's like with Kimmy, like she does so much with the podcast and things like that. And without her, like we wouldn't be, you know. So
Right.
we source out each other and all different things, which is really nice. But talking to other people, especially because we have a lot of women on here, gives us the opportunity to really touch into the hearts of women and what we're after and what we're trying to settle in this world for us women. It's
Right.
not that we have anything against the men. It's just
No.
that us women have been left behind for so much in the past, and now we're speaking out and we're gaining our strength in all the different ways that we need to do, and we should have been doing all along.
Right. Right. And the more steeped we get in that, the easier it is for us to take those reins when it's our turn to. And that doesn't mean that we're not willing to hand them over to the next person when they're
No.
the best person for it. And I know with my retreats lately, as I built my team, so I have a co-facilitator usually, and I have an administrator that takes care of all the details for me. And it's the things that nobody notices unless they don't happen. And that's, for example, making sure that there's Kleenex on the table because somebody's going to cry. Making sure that the coffee is on and the dishwasher is run through and the dishes are back in the cupboard. And what I know about the team that I built and when I really let go of the reins in that area is I absolutely know that I do not have to be there every second controlling things. I can completely focus on the program and on my clients
Yeah.
because I know that I can absolutely count on the women that are around me. So the administrator, my co-facilitator, my caterer, I can absolutely count on them to take care of that stuff so I can be super focused on my clients.
Yeah.
And that letting go of that control has been an incredible experience for me. And things have never gone better for me in my
That's nice.
business than since I built this collaborative team and I allow the people that are there to absolutely shine in the
Mhm.
skills that they have. And I'm
Yes.
very appreciative of what they do.
You bet. You bet. And same with Kim. I so appreciate what she does and the people that we're bringing in to help us as well.
Mhm.
It's lessening her load, less than my load. And why not be grateful for that, right? Because I mean, it's about putting things together to make it all whole.
Mhm.
That's the whole source of what we're trying to do here, right?
Right.
Is make it concrete better.
Hmm. Yes.
What is one
So
of the
yeah,
things? Oh, sorry, Mom.
no,
I was
go.
gonna say, what is one of the things that you hope through your retreats and these programs that you have? What is one of your hopes that people will walk away with?
Well, I think one of the very first things is I want them to be more self-aware, that they quit living in denial and they don't say, oh no, it's okay, that's fine, when it isn't. So truly it comes back to the cowgirl confidence I talked about, where they're balancing tenderness, toughness, truth, and tact,
Right.
and that they can do those things together and experience. I now call that the cowgirl compass, and experience all of those things together, because truly, if you only have a couple of them and you have not explored the other ones, you can't be kind if you're worried about being nice. Because part of kindness is drawing clear boundaries and having honesty in your communications.
Yeah.
But if you do that without tact, you do more damage than you need to. So when
Yeah.
you can find that little ball and have all of those pieces together, it truly is something magical. And if
Mhm.
you have truth and tenderness, you can build trust. If you have tenderness and tact, you foster communication. When you have tact and toughness, you set clear boundaries. And when you have truth and toughness together, you bring clarity.
Mhm.
So truly, when all of those things are together, it is a wonderful way to show up in the world. And you will absolutely make mistakes and you won't always get the balance right. But when you are aware of those four pieces of the quadrant and you can think about where you've been and the lessons you've learned, that's wonderful. And for me, I am not trying to have them go away and leave their house and sell their house in the city and move to a ranch and buy a bunch of horses. It's not what I'm hoping for. What I am truly hoping for is that they will become more aware of the teachers and the lessons that are around them every day
Yes.
that they may not have recognized before they spent time with the horses at the
Yeah.
ranch.
And I think too, it's all right to be their own person too, because none of
Mm-hmm.
us are the same, right?
Right.
And that's also a very valuable thing in life, that we get to learn how to accept ourselves for what we really are. We may be
Yes.
different, the odd girl in the bunch or whatever the case may be, where it might be the ones that get down on the ground and throw sand around where the other ones don't, but it's okay to do that, right? It's okay to
Mm-hmm.
be your own person. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that what I see with the horses is the more I stand in my own authenticity, the more they like and trust me.
Mm.
So, and that doesn't mean I show up perfectly, because I don't always. There are times when I go out there and it's -30 and it's a blizzard and I'm having a heck of a time keeping the hay in the wheelbarrow so I can feed them. And I am cursing at spirit and saying, I'm trying to take care of your little animals. Why won't you give me a hand?
Yeah. Mm.
And I am cranky as can be, and they're okay with that too, even when I stand in that less than pleasant place. They probably aren't going to be cuddly with me, but they allow me to be there,
Right.
because what they really don't like, though, is when I say, oh no, it's fine, or I pretend I'm fine when I'm not. That they don't respond to. So when I just live in my own authenticity and live in the emotions that show up and check with my body, how are you feeling today? I do
Right.
a lot more checking in now. So that was what I was talking about earlier, is creating more self-awareness, because the
Yeah.
horses show me when I'm not self-aware. When I am lying to myself, I can tell by the way they respond to me that it's time for me to slow down, take a breath, and think about where I am.
Hmm. Yeah, and that
I
makes
mean,
a lot
when
of
your
sense.
teacher, yeah,
That's
when your
cool.
teacher weighs 1,000 pounds, they're harder to ignore.
Yeah, absolutely. But I love that because, living in that moment and honoring that, and I think that's an important message for people is, you know, everything doesn't have to be happy and
Mhm.
blissful 100% of the time, right? We are going to be angry or frustrated or whatever it is. It's how we work with that emotion of how we can move forward and and
Right.
reflect on things that we've done or said and said, oh, that maybe wasn't the nicest thing, or maybe I was
Yeah.
kind of
I
snappy
wish
or
I wish I'd handled that a little differently. And I
absolutely.
find that one time when it used to come up for me a lot, and I don't know why I feel so compelled to tell this story, but I do. I used to be quite defensive when someone would give me feedback that could be seen as critical. And then one day I was out in the pasture and I saw a pile of horse turds, and they were torn to bits by little birds who had gone in and they had pulled out the bits of digested grain. So they were looking for the nuggets. So now when somebody gives me some feedback, I just try to put on the mindset of that little bird that I'm digging through it to find the nuggets, and the rest is fertilizer for next year's crop. And when I have been able to see that vision in my mind, when someone is dumping on me, I can find the pieces, because sometimes the thing we need to learn, we may never hear from someone who loves us because they don't want to hurt our feelings.
Right.
So the gift from somebody who isn't particularly invested in us and gives us some honest feedback, even if it's difficult to hear at the time, can be some of the most amazing gifts we ever get in terms of moving ourselves forward.
Oh,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Can't
Yeah.
give up.
No,
No,
and I think, something that mom and I have believed for a long time is the right people show up at the right time, right? So if you get those kind of information, it's like that's supposed to be because maybe you're ready to hear it. Maybe you can,
yes,
like you said, you can digest it a little bit more at that point. But I think when we look at things from, maybe they're not actually trying to criticize us, or they are. But either way, I love how you say, like, take these little nuggets out of that to empower your own self.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's great. So you mentioned that you do some retreats. Do you
I
have any that
do.
are
I,
coming
I
up?
just, yeah, this is exciting. So I have held the retreats at other people's ranches in the past. And on January 14th of this year, I got first reading in a public hearing to do a land use redesignation to turn my own ranch into a retreat center. And my
Nice.
business plan involves not only doing retreats that I will run for my own customers, but also making the facility, the horses, and my caterer available to other people that want to bring their people to a supportive space. And I'm happy to include a half day of horse programming if that's something they want, or just allow them to be in the environment
That's amazing.
of getting out of the city. I'm about an hour from the Calgary airport, so it's easy peasy to get to, about 30 minutes from the South City limit of Calgary. So yes, so that is coming up. I'm not absolutely certain when it's going to happen. My hope is that I will start to do the 1 day programs starting around the middle of June this year, and then hopefully by the middle of July be able to hold the overnight programs. Now it's a small, intimate space by design. There are only 4 bedrooms in the place, so with double occupancy, you could be anywhere. You could be up to 8 people if you liked somebody enough to sleep in a queen bed or a king bed with them. But it is intended to be intimate and supportive. And so that is coming up. I'm super excited about that.
That is very, very exciting.
That's
We're
awesome.
very
Yes.
excited for you because I
Mhm.
that just opens so many things, especially here in Alberta. It's lovely to hear, these different things that are coming up. And so that is amazing. And you've written a book.
I have written a book, and it is about online romance that went bad, where I learned who I was. And I wrote it a few years ago. It's called As Buck Would Have It, instead of As Luck Would Have It, because I've it's loosely based on this experience that I had, although I added a few characters and made quite a bit up. And it was kind of fun to work through the process of understanding, as you've been saying, why someone came into my life and what lessons I could take from it, because it talks about some of the time a few years after I had been treated. I couldn't ride a horse for 2 years because I was too weak.
Right.
And I really did wonder if I would ever get my confidence and my competence around horses back. So, in terms of the relationship between he and I, it was not particularly good, and I could never quite understand how he could be that wonderful with horses and that troubled in his relationship with people. So I kept thinking, I'm missing something. There's more to this story. And I kept giving him chance after chance. But I walked away from the whole experience understanding that I still did have the competence that I needed in order to develop the confidence again. Because I think for women, often we have to feel competent before we allow ourselves to feel the confidence. Whereas I think often men can wade in and they can feel confident before they develop competence. I think we're different that way.
Yeah.
So it gave me back the gift of the horses. And honestly, I truly am. I have a wonderful life and I truly am happy.
Well,
And I
that's
am glad
exciting.
for the lessons I learned through that. And the other thing that I have is 2 equine themed card decks. One is called the Cowgirl's Compass, and it is on 52 core values that we can think about as we're building our lives. And the other one is called Straight from the Horse's Mouth, Wisdom for Women Who Lead with Heart. And it tells the lessons and the stories that I've learned from 35 years of being with horses, because I was an adult when I discovered horses. I was 30 when I started riding. So for me, it truly was an exploration of self leadership, because it was the horses that really showed me that I had picked up the leadership style of bullying and bribery. It was the horses that showed me that, because I already had about 8 years experience as a supervisor. And what I learned from the horses was that they accepted my bribes of carrots and apples, but they still didn't allow me to influence their behavior. And when I tried to up the energy and push them around, they avoided me. So I realized that in order to be an effective leader for them, I needed to find the way of leadership, which I believed came from finding the place where they felt safe around me. And I do know that other people don't feel safe around us until we learn that we can make decisions for ourselves that keep us feeling safe. So that leadership really does start with self.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And can
Yeah.
you tell everybody where to find you, where to find your retreats,
Yes,
your books, you?
absolutely. My website is thecowgirlscode.com, cowgirl with an S. And watch it because I have some exciting things. I am revamping it. It is pretty ugly right now, pretty wordy. It needs some help, and I am working with an amazing woman to get that together. But there are some free resources that are on there. One of them is a workbook that takes you through exploring your own core values and building your version of the Cowgirls Code, which is my own code of conduct that keeps me on track. And you can certainly see that on the website as well. And I offer some 1 hour, they actually end up being 75 minutes usually, where we go through that process of looking at your core values and designing a first draft of your own code of conduct. Now, in an hour, of course, an hour or an hour and a half, you are not going to design something. It took me about approximately 6 weeks to design my own code of conduct. And mine is based on the core values of integrity, courage, compassion, and community. So you're free to check that out on the website as well. And there is more that's coming. I'm currently working on a quiz that will allow you to figure out where you give away your power. So that is coming soon as well. So please feel free to jump on the website, take a look at the free page to see what my free offers are. And I would absolutely love to hear from your clients and see where I can be of assistance to them.
Well, thank
Beautiful.
you. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And we'll throw those all in the show notes. And this has been so fun. Can you tell us, we can see it behind you, and Mom and I would love for you to tell people what the Cowgirls Code is.
Okay, I've got a cheat too because I actually don't have it memorized. I look at it every day, and it is on the wall behind me, not for you, but so that when I go off track, I can read it. But I will read it to you now. So the first is be courageous, saddle up and ride. The second is to recognize divine moments within imperfect rides. The third is to be open to the teachers and lessons in every pasture and on every trail. Invite others to come along, especially when it's risky to ride solo. We've talked about that one today for
Yeah.
sure. Mind your fences, protect your pastures from overgrazing. Respect others' fences. Don't expect neighbors to feed your livestock. And finally, travel the trail of integrity. Honor commitments to yourself and others. And I just have a tiny funny story. I sat with it only had 6 codes for a long time, and I sat with it for quite a while. And I lease my hayfield to the farmer across the road. So it is my land, but his hay crop. And one of my geldings figured out that if he stuck his head between the two strands of wire on the fence, he could then lift his head up and the wire would roll down his neck. So it was on his back. And then he only had to step over one strand that was knee high and he could get out in the hayfield. And I thought I was complete. And then I realized that I hadn't added the one about respecting others' fences and how important that is in relationships of mutual respect. So it probably took me a total of, I want to say 8 or 9 weeks to really come to terms on the Cowgirls Code and how I could live my life in connection with my own core values. I just thought it
Mhm.
was funny that that final one came to me when I saw Fonzie out there on Cam's field eating his hay, that I had missed that particular piece about respecting others.
Yeah,
That's
that's cute
perfect.
though.
That is cute. Well, thank you for sharing that and all the other stories and all your wisdom. And we really appreciate you being on the podcast with us today and letting people know that because I think that's a really important thing. And I know, Mom, also this is what our mission is. So this is what we're excited to get people to hear. If you had a final thought to leave with everybody, what would it be?
My final thought would be again around the idea of self-awareness, that it is very hard for any good to come when you are denying your emotions and telling yourself stories. So everything begins with self-awareness before anything else can happen, and to
Yeah,
trust yourself.
there's a big
Perfect.
one.
Yes, it is.
What fun. What
It
fun.
is.
Thank you. What a lovely conversation. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to be here. I'm so glad I came, and I
Yes.
truly, truly enjoyed this discussion.
Thank you.
Yes, we did
Us
too.
as well.
Yeah,
So thank you so
yeah.
much for joining us. And everybody else, we will see you on the next one.
You will.
Bye for now.